is a place where the road narrows and the birch trees begin. You have been traveling for a while now. Not a difficult journey, just a long one. The kind that leaves a quiet tiredness in your shoulders. The kind that makes you notice the warmth of a lit window from a long way off. And there, at the top of a gentle hill where the road curves, and the last of the evening light is still pale gold along the tree line, you see it. The Birch Hill Inn. It is smaller than you expected, and somehow more perfect for that. Stone walls the color of cream and soft gray. A slate roof dusted at its edges, with a fine layer of early frost. The chimney is already breathing, a slow ribbon of white smoke rising into the darkening sky. The windows glow amber and deep orange, the way only firelit windows glow, with that particular warmth that has no equivalent anywhere in the modern world. You stop for a moment just to look at it. There is no urgency here. No one is waiting for you in any way that creates pressure. The inn simply exists, and the light is on, and somewhere inside there is warmth. That is enough, more than enough. The path to the front door is made of flat stones fitted loosely together, with soft moss growing in the gaps. Your footsteps are quiet on them. The air smells of wood smoke and cold pine, and something faintly sweet, dried herbs perhaps, hung somewhere near the kitchen. A bundle of lavender above a doorway. Something like that. You push open the low wooden gate, and it swings easily, without a creak. Someone has oiled it recently. Someone pays attention to small things here. The front garden is simple and unhurried. A stone bird bath. A wooden bench with a worn cushion the color of sage green. A single lantern on a post, burning with a still, low flame. The beds along the path are planted with herbs and winter flowers, small white blooms you don't know the name of, but which seem exactly right for the season, exactly right for this evening. By the time you reach the front door, you realize your breathing has already slowed. The door is heavy oak, dark with age, with a small brass knocker in the shape of a sleeping fox. You lift it gently and let it fall, and the sound is soft and absorbed quickly by the stillness around you. A moment passes, then another. There is no anxiety in the waiting. The light in the window says someone is there. The smoke from the chimney says the fire is tended. You are expected, in the way that all travelers are expected at a place that understands what it means to need rest. The door opens. She is a woman of perhaps 60, with white hair loosely pinned and reading glasses still perched at the end of her nose, as though she has just set down a book. Her face is round and warm, with the kind of creases that come from a life of easy smiling rather than worry. She is wearing a deep burgundy cardigan, soft and slightly oversized, and she looks at you the way people look at someone they have been quietly hoping would arrive. She says your name, or perhaps she doesn't say anything at all, and the feeling of being recognized passes between you without needing words. "Come in," she says. "You must be cold." You are not particularly cold, but you step inside, and the warmth meets you so gently that it feels like something remembered rather than something new, like returning to a place you loved before you knew you loved it. The entrance hall is low-ceilinged and quiet. A coat rack by the door holds a few wool scarves and a waxed jacket. There There's a small table with a ceramic bowl of dried rose hips and a single candle in a pewter holder, burning steadily. The floors are wide wooden boards, worn smooth and pale in the middle where countless feet have crossed. A narrow staircase at the end of the hall curves upward and disappears, and you can hear very faintly, from somewhere deeper in the inn, the soft sound of a fire. The innkeeper takes your coat and hangs it with a kind of quiet efficiency that speaks of long practice, of having done this thousands of times and finding satisfaction in each one. "The fire is good tonight," she says. "It took well. Sometimes in October it doesn't want to, but tonight it does." She doesn't ask if you're tired. She doesn't need to. She leads you not immediately to your room, but first, gently, without explanation, toward the sitting room at the back of the inn where the fire is. You follow, and the inn folds around you as you move through it, each room slightly darker and warmer and quieter than the last, like moving deeper into something sheltered, like moving toward the center of something safe. The sitting room opens before you, and there is the fire. It burns in a wide stone hearth framed by river stones and old brick, with a low wooden mantel above it, where 3 white candles burn in a row, and a small brass clock ticks with a sound as soft as a heartbeat. The flames are not dramatic. They are steady and low and deeply orange, the kind of fire that has been burning long enough to settle into itself, the kind of fire that asks nothing of you except to sit near it. 2 chairs face the hearth, upholstered in worn velvet the color of deep teal. A small table between them holds a ceramic pitcher and 2 mugs, steam rising from both in slow, unhurried curls. "Sit," she says, and her voice is simply kind. You sit. The chair receives you the way a good chair should, fully, without complaint, as though it was made for exactly this weight, exactly this tiredness, exactly this particular need to stop. You look at the fire, and the fire looks back, and something in your chest, something that has been held at a slight tension for longer than you realized, releases. Not all at once, just a little, just enough. The clock on the mantel ticks. The fire breathes. Outside, the first stars are appearing above the birch hills, cold and quiet and very far away. And you are here. The tea in the mug is the color of amber. You wrap both hands around it without thinking, the way the body always knows what it wants before the mind decides. The ceramic is thick and smooth and holds the heat well, the kind of mug that was bought for usefulness, not display, and has become beautiful through years of being used. There's a small chip on the handle. You run your thumb across it gently, and for some reason, this makes you feel at ease. Something about the imperfection, something about the proof of a long and ordinary life. The tea is chamomile and something else, something faintly earthy and soft. Linden blossom, perhaps, or valerian. It doesn't matter. It is warm and it is good, and you sip it slowly. And each sip carries the warmth a little further into your chest, a little further down into your body. The innkeeper has settled into the other chair with her own mug. She is not looking at you with any expectation. She is simply present, a warm, unhurried presence in a warm, unhurried room. She has the quality of someone who is genuinely comfortable with silence, who has lived long enough to understand that the absence of noise is not the absence of connection. For a while, neither of you speaks. The fire shifts and resettles, a log dropping an inch with a soft sound, releasing a small constellation of sparks that drift upward and go dark before they reach the flue. The flames respond with a brief deepening, a quiet brightening, and then return to their long and patient burn. Outside, the wind moves through the birch trees. You can hear it from here, not as a howl or a rush, but as a long, slow exhaling. The trees bending and returning, the sound of something vast and unhurried moving through the world beyond the walls of this small, well-kept room. The hills are beautiful tonight, the innkeeper says at last, not as conversation, not as the opening of a topic, simply as a statement made to be shared. The way you might say it to yourself, and choose to say it aloud because someone else is nearby. You turn slightly toward the window. It is dark now beyond the glass, properly dark. The way rural dark is different from any other dark, not threatening but full, complete, as though the land has simply drawn a quiet curtain and gone to rest. But along the ridge of the hills, something moves. The first suggestion of color. Green, very faint, a wash of it low against the skyline. And then, as you watch, it strengthens not suddenly, but with a slow and generous certainty. The northern lights are beginning. They come most nights in October, the innkeeper says. But not every night. You're lucky. You watch through the glass as the green deepens and shifts, as a thread of pale violet joins it along one edge, as the whole slow curtain of it ripples once, gently, and settles again. It is not a spectacular display. It is something quieter than that, something more intimate, the kind of aurora that feels personal rather than theatrical, the kind that seems to appear specifically for those who are still enough to see it. You feel it in your body more than your mind, a loosening, a sense of scale that somehow, rather than making you feel small, makes you feel exactly the right size, part of something long and slow and indifferent to worry. The innkeeper rises quietly and goes to a small cabinet near the door. She returns with a soft woolen blanket, deep gray with a narrow border, and sets it on the arm of your chair without ceremony. In case, she says, you pull it across your lap. It is heavier than it looks, and it settles over you with a satisfying weight, the kind of weight that tells the body it is allowed to stop bracing. The fire, the tea, the blanket, the lights beyond the glass. The room holds all of it without effort. You become aware, slowly, of how your shoulders have dropped, how your jaw has unclenched without you asking it to, how your breath, somewhere in the last few minutes, has found a new rhythm, slower, lower, longer. Not a rhythm you chose, one that simply arrived, the way sleep always arrives when you stop watching for it. The clock on the mantel counts its soft seconds. The innkeeper has returned to her chair and her book, reading glasses back in place, turning pages with the unhurried care of someone who is enjoying every line. She doesn't need anything from you. She doesn't need you to be interesting or present or conversational. She simply shares the room with you, and her ease becomes your ease. The way calm is contagious in a way that urgency never quite manages to be. Your mug is nearly empty. The last of the tea is just warm now, soft on the tongue. You set it on the small table beside you and lean back a little further into the chair. The blanket, the fire, the faint aurora threading its green and violet light above the hills. You let your eyes rest, not close, not yet, just rest, and the room breathes around you. The sounds settle into layers. The tick of the clock, the low voice of the fire, the slow wind in the birch trees outside, and beneath all of it, something quieter than sound, a stillness that lives inside this place, the way warmth lives inside stone. You are not waiting for anything. You are simply here, and here is very good. After a time, it might have been 20 minutes or 40 or more. Time in this room does not behave as it does elsewhere. The innkeeper sets down her book and looks at the fire with the expression of someone completing a quiet ritual. Your room is ready, she says. Whenever you are. There is no hurry in it. Whenever you are means exactly that. You gather the blanket from your lap and fold it, more out of habit than necessity, and set it on the arm of the chair. You rise slowly, letting the motion be unhurried, and find that the tiredness in your body has shifted in quality. It is softer now, less the tiredness of strain and more the tiredness of deep ease, the kind that pulls you gently toward sleep like a tide pulling gently toward shore. The innkeeper takes a small candle from the mantel, one of the three, the one nearest the end, and cups her hand around the flame as she leads you back through the sitting room and into the hall. The flame bends and rights itself with each step. You follow the warm circle of its light through the inn. The staircase is narrow, and the treads creak very softly underfoot, and the sound is a good sound, an old house sound, a sound that speaks of many people having climbed these same stairs to sleep, year after year, winter after winter, leaving behind nothing but the faint warmth of having rested here. You trail your hand along the wall as you climb, and the plaster is cool and smooth beneath your fingers. At the top of the stairs, a short corridor, 3 doors. The innkeeper leads you to the one at the far end, the last door, the one nearest the roof, the one with the faint smell of cedar and lavender drifting from beneath it, and opens it gently. The room is small and very good. The ceiling slopes on one side where the roofline comes down, and there is something deeply satisfying about a sloped ceiling above a bed, something that makes the space feel cupped, held, like being tucked inside something rather than simply being in a room. The walls are painted the palest blue, not cold, but the blue of early morning, of the sky before the sun has fully risen, the color of something between night and dawn. The floorboards are the same pale worn wood as downstairs, with a small rug beside the bed in deep red and old gold. And the bed, it is a single bed with a high headboard of dark wood, covered first in a layer of crisp white linen, and then a quilt the color of cream and forest green, hand stitched in a pattern of small leaves and winding branches. The pillow is deep and soft and cold in the way that pillows are before you lay your head on them, and the quilt has been folded back at one corner in invitation. The bedside table, a low lamp with a shade of amber glass, casting a warm circle of light that barely reaches the corners of the room. A small glass of water, A single white flower in a narrow vase, a snowdrop perhaps, or something like it. And a book, should you want it, though you think you will not want it tonight. The innkeeper sets the candle on the windowsill and gestures toward the window with something like quiet pride. You can see the hills from here, she says, and the lights, if they're still going. You look. The window is small and deep set, with a window seat below it covered in a cushion of faded green. Beyond the glass, the hills rise dark and soft against the sky, and the aurora is still there, quieter now. A residue of pale color along the ridge, more impression than spectacle. A suggestion of the world continuing its slow, luminous business while you prepare for sleep. I'll leave you to it, the innkeeper says, and she takes the candle with her, and the door closes with the softest possible sound, and you are alone in the room. Alone, but not lonely. The lamp makes its amber circle. The quilt waits. The water in the glass catches the light. You move through the small room in the unhurried way of someone who has arrived somewhere they trust. You sit on the edge of the bed, and the mattress accepts your weight with a slow exhale. You look down at your hands, resting open in your lap, and notice how still they are, how the tightness that lives usually in the joints and tendons has, without you noticing, let go. You lie back, and the pillow is everything a pillow should be, the cool linen warming quickly against your cheek, the softness neither too much nor too little. You pull the quilt up, and it settles over you with that same satisfying weight as the blanket downstairs, and your body, recognizing this language, responds immediately. Your legs release, your arms release. Your spine, which has been holding you upright all day, allows itself to be held by the mattress instead. The lamp is still on, and its light is gentle, warm enough to comfort, soft enough not to keep you. Through the window, the aurora makes one last quiet ripple across the sky. You watch it, half seeing from the depths of the pillow. The lights move like breathing. Slow in, slow out. The room holds you. The lamp burns low. You don't turn it off. You don't need to. It will find its own way to dimness. Or perhaps you will simply stop noticing it, which amounts to the same thing. For now, its amber light lies across the ceiling, and the sloped wall like warm water, pooling in the corners, softening the edges of everything. You look at the ceiling, and the ceiling is plain and good. There's a small imperfection in the plaster near the peak of the slope, a thin, curved line, like a river seen from high above. You follow it with your eyes once, and then your gaze drifts away, and that is fine. There is no need to hold on to anything right now. The inn settles around you. Old buildings do this. They make small sounds as the night deepens and the temperature shifts, the beams and joists adjusting minutely, the stones releasing the day's warmth by degrees. These sounds are not startling. They are the sounds of something alive and old and simply continuing. They are the sounds of a building that has held many people through many nights and knows what it is for. Somewhere below you, you can hear the very faint tick of the sitting room clock. It travels up through the floor and the walls, arriving at your ears so softened by distance that it is less a sound and more a feeling, a rhythm, a pulse, a quiet reminder that time is passing in the gentlest and most ordinary way. Your breathing has taken on the rhythm of the room. This is something you notice without analyzing. The breath moves in, and the walls seem to lean in slightly. The breath moves out, and everything releases an increment further, as though the room is breathing with you, as though the whole quiet in is one slow, steady exhalation. There is a word in some languages for this, for the feeling of a place that shelters. Not just the physical shelter of walls and a roof, but the deeper shelter of a space that has been cared for, that has absorbed years of ordinary goodness. Tea made in the mornings, fires laid in the evenings, windows open to the spring and closed against the winter, beds made with attention, small rituals performed not for show, but because they matter. The Birch Hill Inn has that quality. You feel it in the quilt across your body. You feel it in the cool of the pillow and the particular silence of the room, a silence that is not empty, but full, textured with all the quiet it has gathered over the years. You think, briefly, of the journey that brought you here, not with any worry, just with the mild curiosity of someone turning over a smooth stone. There was a road. There were birch trees, pale and close together, their leaves already half turned to gold. There was the first sight of the inn's lit window, warm and specific against the darkening sky, drawing you forward not with urgency, but with something more like recognition. And now here, the pillow, the quilt, the lamp's amber patience. Sometimes it is enough to simply note that a thing has resolved well, that a day or a journey or a long stretch of something difficult has ended in warmth and rest. This is one of those times, and that recognition, simple, unadorned, carries its own kind of peace. The window is a rectangle of deep blue-black above the window seat. The aurora has quieted, but the stars are visible now, very clear in the way stars are on cold nights above places with no other light to compete. You can see them from where you lie, not by turning your head much, just by letting your gaze drift that way. Small, cold fires, impossibly distant, burning with complete indifference to whether anyone notices them. There is something restful about that, about things that continue without needing you to witness them. The stars will burn whether you are awake or asleep. The hills will hold their dark shapes through the night. The birch trees will move in the wind that comes down from the north, their white trunks pale in the dark, their branches barely visible, present as a sound rather than a sight. The world does not need you to watch over it tonight. This is perhaps the deepest permission there is. You let your eyes close, not forcing them, not deciding. They simply reach the point where staying open requires more effort than closing, and the effort is no longer worth making. Lids come down with a softness that feels like being touched gently by someone you trust. The darkness behind your eyes is warm and textured, not blank, but gentle. A deep amber brown, like looking at the sun through closed eyes, except without the sun. Just warmth, self-generated, the inner warmth of a body that has decided to rest. Your hands are open at your sides, fingers loosely uncurled. Your jaw is loose. Your shoulders have sunk into the mattress by another fraction. The clock ticks far below. The fire breathes in the sitting room, though you cannot hear it, only feel it somehow, as a warmth that has traveled up through the walls of the inn to reach you here in your small room under the sloping roof. The quilt is exactly as heavy as it needs to be. The pillow is exactly as soft. The room is exactly as still. You are here, only here, nowhere else. There's a guest in the room beside yours. You become aware of this not intrusively. There is no noise, no disturbance, but through the faintest suggestion of presence. The small sounds of another person settling, the barely their creak of a mattress, the soft sound of a lamp being turned off. It is strangely comforting, not because you need company, but because it is a reminder that you are not alone in needing rest. That somewhere in every room of every place like this, people are doing the same thing you are doing right now, releasing the day, letting the body do what the body knows how to do when it is finally given permission. You imagine them briefly, not clearly, just as an impression. Someone also traveling. Someone also tired in the good, soft way. Someone whose shoulders have also dropped by degrees since they arrived here. Since the fire and the tea and the weight of a good quilt made the long argument of staying awake no longer worth having. There's a word sometimes used for this feeling, sonder, the realization that everyone around you has a life as full and complex and internally experienced as your own. But tonight it doesn't feel complex. It feels simple and warm. All of you here under the same roof. All of you breathing in the same quiet dark. All of you separately and together letting go. The lamp on your bedside table has dimmed, or your eyes have adjusted so that the light no longer registers as much. The room has shifted in quality, from lit to half lit, to something more intimate than either. The amber of the lampshade now seems almost to glow from inside itself rather than from any flame, a soft and self-contained warmth. Your body has been conducting its quiet work while your mind has been drifting. This is what bodies do when given the chance. They inventory and release. They ease the tension from the places it has gathered without permission. The base of the skull, the long muscles on either side of the spine, the place between the shoulder blades where stress tends to settle like a stone, the hinges of the jaw, the small, persistent holding in the belly that has been there so long you stopped noticing it was there at all. All of it now slowly letting go. You don't have to do anything for this process. It is already happening. It has been happening since you sat down by the fire and wrapped your hands around the warm mug. Your body knew long before your mind did that tonight was for rest, and it has been making its quiet preparations ever since. The quilt rises and falls with your breathing. The stars beyond the window are still there, still burning in their patient, indifferent way. You notice a sound you hadn't registered before, very low, very steady, almost below the threshold of hearing. The wind moving through the eaves of the old roof. It is not a sound of weather or force. It is more like a tone, a single sustained note, barely audible, the sound of the building, wearing the night the way a person wears a coat, fully, without noticing. This sound, like the clocks ticking and the fires breathing downstairs, becomes part of the fabric of the room. The room has its own sound, its own particular voice, made of all these quietnesses layered together. And your body, which is very good at recognizing safety even when your mind is not paying attention, hears this voice and responds to it. Your thoughts, which have been moving slowly, not urgently, like leaves on a very still pond, begin to still further. Not the deliberate quieting of thought, not the trying, just the natural way thoughts thin out when the body is warm and held and the darkness behind the eyes is soft. They become less sequential, less tethered to meaning or memory or anticipation. They become more like images than ideas, impressions. The road through the birch trees, the amber windows of the inn against the dark, the sleeping fox on the brass knocker, the steam rising from the mug. These images drift past without asking to be followed. You watch them the way you might watch slow clouds from a warm window, with pleasant inattention, with the ease of someone who has nowhere to be and nothing to decide. The guest in the next room has gone quiet now, settled into sleep, perhaps, or settled into that same suspended, borderless place you are approaching, the threshold country, neither waking nor sleeping, where the body has made its decision, and the mind is only just receiving the message. You are in that country now. You can feel its particular quality. The way sounds become slightly more distant, as though heard from a gentle depth. The way the edges of thought lose their definition. The way the body seems to grow heavier and lighter simultaneously. Heavier into the mattress, lighter in itself, as though something is being set down that doesn't need to be carried anymore. The lamp's amber warmth, the sound in the eaves, the clock far below, still counting its soft and faithful seconds. You are not trying to sleep. You are simply letting sleep find you here, in this small room, under this good quilt, in this old, and tended in on the hill above the birch trees. And sleep is very close now, very close, in the deepest part of the night, the in dreams. You are not quite asleep and not quite awake, and in this in-between place, you become aware of the inn as something more than walls and boards and plaster, something that has its own interior life, slow and long and full of the accumulated ordinary wonder of many years. You feel it in the way you feel things in that borderland, not as thought, but as knowing. The way certain places simply tell you what they are, if you are still enough to listen. The Birch Hill Inn has been here for a very long time, long before the road was properly paved, long before the valley below had its small cluster of shops and the light that now glows there on clear nights, long before the birch trees were as tall as they are now. The stone of its walls came from the hillside itself. Someone carried each piece, placed each piece, pressed them together with care and intention, and the hills have never entirely relinquished them. The inn is still partly hill, still partly earth, and this is perhaps why it feels so naturally like rest. The guests who have come here over the years are present in this way, too, not as ghosts or memories, nothing like that, but as a kind of warmth, the accumulated residue of so many evenings spent in ease, so many mugs of tea finished by a fire, so many shoulders released from tension, so many minds that arrived tangled and left simplified. All of that has seeped into the plaster and the wooden floors and the creasing of the old velvet chairs, and the inn holds it without effort. The stone holds warmth long after the sun has set. You are part of that now. Your own ease, your own release, your own quiet arriving and settling. It is becoming part of the inn's long and unhurried history. Something small and good, added to all the other small and good things. This thought, if it is a thought, it is more like a feeling. A sense fills you with something that is not quite happiness and not quite peace, but something that contains both of them and several other things besides. A sense of continuity, a sense of belonging to something longer than yourself, not because you have done anything or achieved anything, but simply because you are here, and being here is enough, and has always been enough. The wind outside makes its tone in the eaves. The stars move barely in their ancient arcs above the hills. In the sitting room below, the fire has burned down to a deep red glow. A bed of coals that will hold their heat through the night, patient and self-sufficient, keeping the inn warm from its center outward, the way a living thing is warm from its center outward. The innkeeper sleeps in her own room at the back of the ground floor. Her breathing is deep and practiced, the breathing of someone who has long made peace with night. Her book is on the bedside table, open to the last page she read, a ribbon marking the place. Her reading glasses are folded beside it. Her window faces the kitchen garden, and through it, when the moon is right, the frost on the herb beds glitters like something lavish. The guest beside you sleeps fully now. Their breathing, which you cannot quite hear but somehow sense, is long and even. A good sound, even unheard. A reassuring sound. The sound of a fellow traveler who has also found their rest. And you are very nearly there. The thoughts that remain are not thoughts exactly. They are colors. They are textures. The green of the aurora rippling above the dark hills. The specific warm orange gold of firelight against old stone. The cream and forest green of the quilt pattern. The pale blue of the bedroom walls. That early morning color that is also somehow the color of the inside of sleep. These colors drift and overlap. The amber lamp has burned so low, it is more suggestion than light. The room has settled into a deep blue dimness, the kind that is entirely comfortable, entirely safe. The darkness here is not the darkness of absence. It is the darkness of fullness, of completion, of a day that has resolved into exactly the right conclusion. Your body is very still now, not the stillness of effort, but the stillness of arrival. You have arrived completely at rest. Every part of you that was held is no longer held. Every part of you that was braced has released. The mattress knows the shape of you now. The pillow is warm where your cheek has rested. The quilt rises. The quilt falls, rises, falls. The clock counts its quiet seconds far below, and each one carries you a little further from the shore of waking, a little deeper into the warm and boundless water of sleep. The inn breathes. The hills hold their shapes in the dark. The birch trees stand pale and patient along the road, and you are drifting in the softest and most willing way, towards somewhere very deep and very quiet and entirely yours. Sleep, when it comes like water rising, not crashing in, not arriving all at once, but rising from below, the way warmth rises through stone, the way light fills a room not by pouring in from one place, but by growing everywhere gradually, until the room is simply lit, and you cannot say exactly when it became so. It fills the body first. The legs, they are already so heavy and so warm that the rising sleep simply becomes them, claims them, takes them down into a depth where they do not exist as legs anymore, but as weight, as belonging, as earth. The warmth moves upward. The hips, the belly, the chest, and with each breath the tide of sleep rises another fraction, claims another inch of you, and there is no resistance. There is nothing in you that wants to resist, because this is what you have always wanted. This is what the body has been asking for, and the giving of it is one of the most profound pleasures there is. The mind is the last to go. This is always the way. The mind is a faithful, suspicious thing. It wants to verify that all is well before it releases its watch. And so, it makes one last slow survey. The room, the quilt, the window with its rectangle of night sky, the sound in the eaves, the warmth of the lamp, or the memory of the warmth of the lamp. It is barely burning now, barely, a glimmer only. All is well. All is well. All is well. The mind, having heard this from the room and from the body, and from the deep reliability of this old stone inn on its hill, finally agrees. It releases its watch. It sets down what it has been holding all day. And there has been a lot. There is always a lot. The accumulated ordinary weight of a day in a life. And it lets it go. Not tomorrow's concern, not last week's unresolved thing, not the question that has been turning in the background like a stone in water. All of it set down. All of it allowed to rest beside you, outside of you, no longer needing to be held inside the mind. And with that release, sleep rises the last few inches and closes over you like the most welcoming of waters. Warm, still, complete. In the room, the quilt continues to rise and fall. The window holds its deep blue dark. The stars are there, continuing their patient, ancient burning, and it does not matter whether they are seen. They burn because they burn. The hills hold their shapes because they hold their shapes. The birch trees stand because they stand. The inn keeps the night outside and the warmth inside because this is what it does, what it has always done, what it will continue to do all through the dark hours until morning. And somewhere at the center of all of this, at the center of the quilt's rising and falling, at the center of the room's blue dark warmth, you sleep. Truly sleep. The kind of sleep that is its own country, with its own geography of soft hills and warm valleys and corridors of light that lead nowhere in particular and everywhere good. The kind of sleep that works, that repairs, that restores the thing in you that gets worn by waking, that restores the capacity for wonder, for patience, for the ordinary kindness of being a person in the world. This is what sleep does when it is allowed to do it. When the body is warm and the mind is quiet and the room is safe and the darkness is full rather than empty. It works. It does its ancient, intelligent, necessary work. And in the morning, you will feel the evidence of it, not as a memory of any dream or image, but as a quality, a particular quality of having been repaired, having been restored, having been given back to yourself. But that is morning. Morning is a long way away. For now, there is only the quilt rising and falling, the stars, the inn, the dark, the deep and faithful dark. The night is not empty while you sleep. The inn continues its quiet life around you, steady and unhurried. The way a river continues beneath the ice, present, moving, alive in its own terms beneath the apparent stillness. The fire in the sitting room has found its deepest state by now. Flames are gone, and only the coals remain, heaped on one another in the grate, burning without light in the way hot things burn in the deep dark, by feel rather than sight, by heat radiating outward through the room, keeping the walls and floors and ceilings of the inn a few degrees warmer than the night outside. The coals will hold like this until almost morning. They have done it every night for more winters than anyone now living has counted. The sitting room holds the absence of the fire's light with equanimity. The chairs are empty and patient. The ceramic mugs from earlier have been set in the kitchen, rinsed. The blanket on the arm of the chair waits. The small brass clock on the mantel does what it has always done, counts quietly, faithfully, without judgment or preference. Every second the same as every other second. The long, patient arithmetic of a night in October. Outside, the northern lights have faded entirely. The sky is a field of stars now. That particular late autumn sky that seems closer and more present than summer sky, as though the cold has tightened it, brought it down. The stars over the Birch hills are extraordinary if anyone were watching, which tonight no one is. They burn their colors, white and blue-white, and the occasional deep amber of an older, cooler star in complete self-sufficiency. They do not need the night to end. They do not need anything at all. They simply are, in the way that beautiful things simply are, whether witnessed or not. The birch trees along the road are silver in the starlight. Their bark, which in daylight is a warm cream white with its particular marks and patterns, those horizontal lines like written script in an alphabet no one reads anymore, is, in this light, purely silver, pure pale. They stand close together as birch trees do, their upper branches interlocked, creating a low canopy under which the road passes like a thought passing through a mind. Quiet, unremarkable, necessary. One of the trees at the edge of the road has lost a branch this autumn, a long, low branch that used to reach out over the path, and which has come down and been set aside by the innkeeper's son, who comes sometimes on weekends to help with things. The raw place where the branch joined the trunk is already beginning its long, unhurried healing. Birch trees heal beautifully. They close over wounds with care, with patience, and in a year or two, the place where the branch was will be smooth and strange and silvery, and no one who did not know will be able to find it. This is what the night holds while you sleep. Trees healing, stars burning, coals glowing without light, the clock in the sitting room counting its faithful seconds, the innkeeper asleep in her room at the back, her breathing deep and practiced, the guest beside you also deep in sleep now, their body doing its own quiet work of repair, and the hills, always the hills, the birch hills that give this place its name, rolling up from the valley in long, gentle curves, covered in the birch trees and the heather, and the occasional outcropping of the gray stone that the inn's walls are made of. The hills absorb the night and hold it without effort. They have absorbed so many nights, so many years of nights. They are patient in a way that is almost incomprehensible, a patience measured in centuries rather than hours. And something of that patience reaches through the walls of the inn and through the floor and up through the mattress and into you while you sleep. This is the gift of places like this, the gift of stone and old wood and a well-tended fire, the gift of hills that have been hills long enough to know something about the long perspective, about how much resolves, given time, about how much is simply whether moving through, not staying, about how much that seems urgent in the moment of waking life has the quality, from a sufficient height, of very temporary weather. Your body knows this, at the level where the body knows things without needing the mind to translate. Your nervous system, which has been on some kind of alert for longer than you can remember, has taken the night's accumulated ease as evidence that it is safe to rest. Not safe forever, not safe in any absolute or final way, but safe tonight, safe in this room, safe under this quilt in this inn on this hill. And safe tonight is enough. Safe tonight is everything. The clock counts. The coals breathe their invisible fire. The stars burn. You sleep all the way down. Before the dawn comes the deep hour. Not the latest hour of the night, but the deepest one, the hour when the dark is most complete, when the stars have made their full arc and are beginning, almost imperceptibly, to shift toward their descent. The hour when the world is most thoroughly itself, most fully settled into its nighttime nature, most completely given over to stillness. This is the hour when sleep is deepest. This is the hour your body has been traveling toward since the moment you sat down by the fire, since the first sip of chamomile tea, since the weight of the quilt settled across you and your spine released into the mattress. This is what all of that was for. This deep, unhurried, restorative dark. This quality of rest that is not merely the absence of wakefulness, but a positive thing, a state with its own substance and texture and light, or rather, its own particular kind of not light, which is its own kind of light. In this hour, the inn sounds are at their most minimal. The clock ticks. Everything else is still. The silence between ticks is very long. Long enough to fall into, long enough to travel within, long enough that it becomes its own landscape rather than simply an absence of sound. A landscape of soft, dark shapes and slow, warm expanses where nothing is asked and nothing is owed. The cold outside has deepened slightly. It does this in the last hours of night, a final tightening before the slow warmth of morning begins its long return. The frost on the kitchen garden has strengthened. The birch trees are perfectly still. The wind that moved through the hours of early night has settled, and the trees stand in the windless cold like pale sentinels along the road, their breath, if trees have breath, held. The valley below the hill is full of mist, You cannot see this from your room, from your sleep, but it is happening. The low places always fill with mist in these hours, a white softness pooling in the folds of the land, pooling in the bend of the small river that runs along the valley floor, rising in wisps where the water is a little warmer than the air. The village at the center of the valley is entirely veiled. Its lights are off. Every person in every house is asleep, in whatever degree of depth their particular tiredness or peace allows. The whole world for these few hours is a world of sleep, and you are part of it completely. Not isolated in your rest, not separated from the world by your closed eyes and your quilt and your warm, dreaming body, but continuous with it. Part of the same long breathing, part of the same deep dark, part of the same ancient rhythm that has been cycling through all the creatures that have ever lived on this earth, the in-breath of waking, the out-breath of sleep, back and forth, year after year, season after season. The most fundamental thing there is. The quilt rises. The quilt falls. Somewhere in the fields beyond the birch trees, a fox is moving. Quick, quiet, orange, bright in the dark, following its own perfect knowledge of the terrain. It passes the stone wall at the edge of the inn's garden without looking at it. The sleeping fox on the front door's brass knocker seems, in some way that is not literal, but is true, to know this. They are cousins, the real fox in the real field and the brass fox on the heavy oak door. And in this deep hour of the night, their kinship is very clear. The fox reaches the edge of the birch wood and enters it without pausing, and the white trunks receive it, and it disappears into the silver dark of the trees. The stars begin, almost imperceptibly, to shift. The deepest hour is passing. Not quickly, gently, almost reluctantly, the way good things pass, with a kind of slowness that lets you inhabit it fully before it ends. But passing. The night has reached its fullest depth and is beginning, infinitely slowly, to turn back toward light. This turning is not yet visible. It is not even close to visible. It is a quality, a temperature, a barely there shift in the quality of the dark. But the birds know it. There's a small bird, a wren perhaps, tucked into the ivy on the inn's east wall, that has begun, in the deepest interior of its dreaming, to feel the turn. Not to respond yet, not to sing, but to register at the level of whatever wrens have in place of consciousness. The faint and distant message that morning is somewhere on its way. Even knowing this, there is no hurry. There is so much night remaining, so many soft, dark, restoring hours between this moment and the first gray light above the hills. Hours in which your body will continue its careful work. Hours in which you will sleep through colors and warmth and the occasional brief dream. Images rising and dissolving, meaningful in the moment, gone by morning, doing what dreams do, which is something necessary and not yet fully understood and deeply good. You are deep in it now, deeper than thought, deeper than worry, deeper even than rest. You are in the place where sleep becomes simply being, where the distinction between the sleeper and the sleep begins to dissolve, where you are not someone sleeping, but something larger and quieter than that. Something that contains the inn and the fire and the birch trees and the mist-filled valley and the fox in the wood and the wren in the ivy. something that simply is, in the dark, breathing at peace. The clock ticks. The coals breathe. The night holds. When the light comes, it comes from the east. It comes the way it always comes, without announcement, without drama, simply as a quality of change in the color of the air above the hills. A gray that is not quite gray, having a faint warmth buried in it. A growing, a very slow brightening, as though the sky is remembering something it had not entirely forgotten, and the memory is returning in layers. You do not need to wake for this. You can stay where you are in the deep, warm, restorative quiet of your sleep, and the light can do what it does without you. You do not need to witness the dawn to benefit from it. The morning is coming regardless, reliable as the inn, reliable as the hills, and it will be there when you are ready for it. For now, stay. Stay in the warmth of the quilt, in the softness of the pillow, in the blue dimness of the small room with the sloped ceiling and the window seat and the walls the color of early morning sky. You have been here all night. The room knows you now. The mattress knows the shape of your rest. The pillow is warm and familiar. There is no reason to leave. Far below, in the kitchen, the innkeeper has woken. She moves through the kitchen with the ease of long practice, lighting the stove, filling the kettle, opening the back door for a moment to look at the garden. The cold comes in briefly, and she closes the door again, but not before she has taken in the frost on the herb beds, the pale gray of the sky above the eastern hills, the first bird sound, a single note from somewhere in the ivy on the stone wall. A wren beginning to believe in morning. She smiles. She has seen this so many times, the particular morning of Birch Hill, the particular quality of an October dawn above these particular hills. She has never found it unremarkable. Every morning, the same hills, the same sky growing pale, the same small birds. Every morning, a small private gratitude. She puts the kettle on. In the dining room, a small room with 2 tables, white cloths, a window that looks east over the garden, and the road, and the birch trees toward the hills, she sets 2 places. One for you, one for the guest in the other upstairs room. She does this without fuss, putting out the things she always puts out. A small pottery pitcher of cream, a bowl with golden liquid in it, local honey, from hives kept in the heather on the south-facing hillside, sweet and dark, and faintly floral with the taste of everything that blooms up there. Bread wrapped in a cloth, butter in a small dish, cold from the pantry, just beginning to soften. She works without hurrying, because the guests are still asleep and the morning is still building itself, and there is pleasure in this preparation, in setting out good things for people who need them. In the dining room, through the east-facing window, the sky above the birch hills has shifted from its early gray warmth to something rosier. Not pink, not yet something between. The color of light seen through eyelids. The color of the inside of a hand held up to gentle sun. The birch trees on the hillside catch this light on their white trunks and become luminous. This is the word, not bright, luminous, as though the light is not falling on them, but coming from inside them, their pale bark gathering the dawn the way certain materials gather and hold light. They glow. They are extraordinary in this moment, as they are every morning in this moment, these pale trees on the dark hill in the new light. They are extraordinary, and no one sees them, and they are extraordinary anyway. This is the morning of Birch Hill in October, while the guests still sleep. And in your room, in your sleep, something shifts. It is not waking, not yet, not close, but a gentle lightening, the way the sky has lightened, a shift in the quality of your sleep from its deepest register towards something a little softer, a little more porous. The body moving gradually over the course of the next hours toward the surface. Not urgently. There is no urgency here, but gently, in the way of all natural things, following the rhythm it was given. Your breathing, which has been so long and deep and slow through the night, remains long and deep. Your body is still entirely at rest. The quilt is still warm across you. The pillow is still good. The room is still yours, still safe, still dim in its blue morning way. But in some part of you that does not need to be named or analyzed, there is the beginning of a knowing. A gentle, distant knowing that has no content yet, not a thought, not a plan, not an anticipation, just the bare fact of a new day existing somewhere beyond the window. Quiet and cold and pale and very good. Don't need it yet. Let it wait. The morning will hold itself patiently outside the glass while you finish what the night has given you. While you take the last of the rest, the last of the deep quiet, the last of this particular and unrepeatable sleep in this small room in this old stone inn on the hill above the birch trees. There is something that happens toward the end of a good night's sleep. Not the waking, but the moment just before the waking. The last long breath of deep rest before the surface is reached. Feeling of fullness, of having been given something and having received it. The sense of a whole night of small and faithful repairs having been completed. All the invisible work of sleep having been done, and the body lying complete and unhurried in the morning dimness, needing nothing, asking for nothing, simply resting in the evidence of its own restored wholeness. That is where you are, in that last and most complete and most peaceful moment of the night. Not asleep any longer in the deepest sense, not awake, simply in the country between that warm and borderless place that is entirely its own, entirely good, requiring nothing from you except this, exactly this, the breathing, the warmth, the quilt, the morning light arriving at its own pace beyond the glass. The innkeeper's kettle begins to sing, very faintly, far below. The wren in the ivy sings one long note, then a second, then a rising cascade of notes that is the wren's particular joy, the wren's particular way of receiving the morning, improbably loud for such a small bird, improbably beautiful, the most common and most extraordinary sound of a morning in the country, a sound that has been waking people in places like this for as long as there have been people in places like this. The hills are rose gold now. The birch trees burn their quiet, luminous white in the new light. The frost is already releasing from the herb beds, drop by drop, returning to air. And you are here, still, warm, deeply rested, held by the morning of Birch Hill in the most gentle and certain way. Not needing to move, not needing to do anything at all. Simply here, in the last moments of a night that has given you everything it had to give, in a small room under a sloping ceiling in an old stone inn where everything is tended, and everything is warm, and everything is very quietly, very completely well. The light grows, soft, rose, still, and you rest in it, exactly as you are, exactly as you need to be, for as long as you need. There is no hurry. There is only this.